welcome to Working Fan Saturday, episode 32. We got AJ Strangebrew. We got the man they call Dave. And
what's up,
guys,
baby?
before we get into the meat of tonight's topic, AJ, what do you got going on tonight?
Well, let me tell you something, brother. We're coming live for the first time. We're going to be in front of a live audience at the Elks Club. 957. Going to be doing stand-up in front of a live audience. I'm hosting a show that is absolutely loaded with talent. It's got the headliner, Brian Barganier. Comedians up the yin yang. It starts at 6 o'clock. If you like lasagna, $25. If you want just a comedy show, you get $10 in at 7 o'clock. Come and see these comedians live on stage in front of an actual audience in New Britain, Connecticut. New Britain, Connecticut. We will all be there for the Working Fans podcast. You'll see Dave and Joe actually doing what they do, interviewing comedians. I will be up on stage introducing comedians and telling jokes. Don't miss out on this, guys. New Britain, Connecticut, Elks Club, 957. We're going to tape it, put it up on the network, maybe do a little docu-series. You never know what we're going to do with this.
30 Washington Street, New Britain.
Now, Dave, you recorded something this week that's going to be coming out soon when we finalize days and times, but you want to let the people know what you've been cooking up over there.
Yeah. me and the man called Chevy got a couple episodes recorded of future MMA podcast, or as we'll call it, the Working Fans Combat Cast. I think that's what we decided on. But anyway, yeah. So that'll probably be out on Saturdays, Working Fans Combat Cast, and we'll be talking mostly MMA, but we might talk a little boxing or a little freak show stuff like the Paul brothers, the YouTubers getting into the fight business, and we might tell you our feelings about that, and we might highlight a few fighters. We'll see what we're doing. We're working on the format now, but we just want to put more content out there, and hopefully you guys enjoy.
And this is going to be a surprise to you two, but I actually talked to Josh DeBoard, and we're hoping to get a collaborative podcast in at some point.
Oh, shit.
That is barely in the stages. I just messaged him about it late last night. So
Translation, they were high as shit, and they started talking about some podcasts. Let's see how that rolls in the morning.
Live on the Buzz Network. RSH versus the Working Fans podcast in a steel cage.
Nice. I hope he introduces people tonight better than that.
Blah.
But hey, I'm gonna run a quick podcast commercial, and then we're gonna get into the top 5 dead comedians, or as Archie titled it, top 5 deep-hearted comedians. Producer Joe here from the Working Fans podcast. And at the Working Fans podcast, this is just a podcast that 3 lifelong fans created to have a place to talk comedy and pro wrestling. Now, our comedy podcast releases every Tuesday, while our wrestling podcast releases every Thursday. We release bonus episodes under the moniker Working Fans Presents every now and then. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, any major podcast provider. The important thing is just please like, rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to us. Now, we have started a new thing. We are now on Amazon and Audible. So those episodes release every Monday. And that's kind of going through the archives and just releasing our old episodes in a new area. So if you want to live through the process with us again, take that journey with us again, you can find us over on Amazon and Audible. Now, if you can't get enough of us in the audio form, check out our YouTube. It's youtube.com/C/Working Fans Wrestling Pod, or just search Working Fans Podcast on YouTube. We have the whole archive is up there. And if you listen to the Working Fans Podcast, you are more than familiar with the 531. That is our signature segment where we take your top 5 lists on a particular subject, vote it down to a top 3, and then debate it down to a top 1. Now, guys, if you want to hear 3 guys talk shit about comedy, wrestling, life, anything, you will enjoy the Working Fans Podcast. Now, AJ, you came up with this week's topic. What made you pick it besides just a last-minute replacement for Moose? who is actually sadly at a funeral today.
Yeah, speaking of past comedians.
Great segue,
however,
guys. Sorry.
Yeah. Now they'll bring them up like the funeral. But the reason why I want to do top 5 dead comedians is I think sometimes we do historical comedians or greatest comedians, and some of those greatest comedians are still alive. Some of them are. I think this is a chance for us to pay respects and to talk about some great comedians. And some of them, a lot of comedians have passed away young, because in order to be a comedian, sometimes we see that funny on the outside, but sometimes the reason why you're that funny is because you're a little manic and depressive, and it actually, your way of coping with it is by making other people laugh. So I wanted to give a little bit of respect to those that have gone by.
Yeah, or as Archie says, deep-throated comedians. Deep-hearted.
Deep-hearted.
Yes.
Now, I actually got a couple lists from the Rockin' Randy's Rockin' Wrestling group. So I'll start off with a couple of those, and then AJ, you can give us your list.
You slick son of a bitch.
First up, we got Kevin Dignam. He had Robin Williams, Richard Pryor, George Carlin, Groucho Marx, and Rodney Dangerfield.
I wonder if that's like my list. I have Ed Carlin. I think I meant to write George, but anyway, Ed Carlin coming up. Spoiler.
His little brother Ed was hilarious.
Eddie Carlin. Not many people know about Eddie Carlin. Boy, that dude was great.
And then Kenny Culler has Bernie Mac, Richard Pryor, George Carlin, Rodney Dangerfield, and Robin Williams.
Solid list. Getting no respect. Rodney Dangerfield. One of AJ's
Rodney
favorites.
Dangerfield getting on there. I like the fact that Groucho got on that first list. A lot of times people don't realize that guys that started off in vaudeville and stuff like that had to do a mixture of the skit comedy that he did with his brothers, and also did a single acts and all kinds of style of comedy with vaudeville.
Yeah, that was an interesting pick. Now, what do you got for your list today?
One of my favorites of all time is Mitch Hedberg. He passed away way too early. He was one of those guys that unfortunately got a little hooked on the drugs, as you will. And then Bill Hicks, who also passed away very young, was ahead of his time, very controversial, but dark comedy. Patrice O'Neal was one of my favorites that passed away, also way too young. George Carlin, who clearly passed away too young. He was only about 106 when he died, so yeah, he went down quick.
My brother Eddie.
Yeah. And then I think one of the saddest stories, and somewhat of cautionary tale, Richard Pryor.
Gotta have Richard. I feel like all these lists should have Richard and George on there, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see Mitch Hedberg as much on people's lists. Unfortunately, I think he passed away at a point where he's become somewhat forgotten now. But if you have a chance to go back and look up Mitch Hedberg, I think that's a good one to look up.
Yeah, I didn't have on my list. I think Joe's going to give me his, but Greg Giraldo's another guy who passed on that was super talented at a young age too. Great on those roasts.
He was great on the roast, and he was one of those people that showed up a lot on Howard Stern.
Unless Joe's going to surprise me and be like, I got Greg Giraldo, motherfucker, number one.
All right. I'm going to give you my list, then I'm going to give you a couple others. I was going to do it in reverse order, but Dave forced my hand. I got Lenny Bruce, Bill Hicks, Greg Giraldo.
Oh, shit. He had to give it to me.
I had George Carlin, crossed it out.
Put Eddie in.
Replaced it with Ralphie May, crossed it out.
Wow.
And then I put in the Three Stooges because I thought, since somebody earlier put Groucho in, I enjoyed the Stooges. I think they're an enduring comedy form, and they were around long enough where they kind of won't be forgotten, but it's so long ago that some younger people might not be aware. And
breaking news. Joe just crossed off the Three Stooges for Laurel and Hardy.
I went to see the Laurel and Hardy movie actually when it came out. Stan and Ollie. It was really good. And then last on my list,
Oliver Hardy.
I had Bill Cosby because that motherfucker's dead to me. You guys hear that he got denied parole because he refused sex therapy in prison?
He's going out like a gangster.
In fairness, it was actually his cellmate that wanted to give him the therapy.
And
I disagree with the guy. Obviously, he was a horrible person, but man, talk about standing behind your convictions. It's like, look, think what you want. I'm going out like the way I came.
And that's crazy because what I always liked about his records were they were so funny for being so clean.
Mm-hmm.
And just his storytelling was out of this world that I thought it was impressive. So for him, and then his later heel turn where he got mad at younger comedians and younger black people.
Mm-hmm.
And then we found out he was dealing dick across the US unwanted. And it's just sad to see his end. But I crossed out Bill Cosby and I put in Mitch Hedberg.
Oh,
damn!
nice.
Look at how we got. So he got Mitch and you got Greg in there after.
Nice. Well, that's what happens when you can cross off your list as others are speaking.
Yeah.
No, I did the Three Stooges I added during Mitch Hedberg. I actually put him in when I read Jason Gross's list from the Rock and Randy's Rock and Wrestling Crew. Because he had Richard Pryor, Sam Kinison, Rodney Dangerfield. Oh, wow. He gave us 6. Red Fox. He had Mitch Hedberg in there. And I'm like, ooh, I forgot about Mitch. He's a deep cut. And then Ralphie May.
I am so upset that I didn't get Sam Kinison.
Sam's good. Yeah.
I loved Sam Kinison. Actually, one of my favorite Sam Kinisons, he was great on stand-up. One of my favorite Sam Kinisons is on Married with Children when he had to play the angel for Al Bundy.
Yeah.
And they were doing a play on It's a Wonderful Life where he comes down and he's like, yeah, I'm looking for Al Bundy. And he goes, I'm Al Bundy. And he goes, hold on a second. No, why?
And he groped Peggy.
Yeah, it was great.
I remember that.
Now, Dave, I got 2 more lists. Do you want to give us yours and then we'll end on these other 2?
Whatever.
Dave wants to hear all the lists before he gives his.
All right. No, it's fine. I got Richard Pryor because, like everybody else, I mean, come on. This is the guy all comedians say is the greatest of all time, pretty much. So,
and the sad part is he was never the same after blowing himself up and catching fire or freebasing.
No, but he did make a bit out of that, which is kind of cool, too. So props to him for doing that. I got Robin Williams on there. I got George, don't call me Ed Carlin on there. I also have Red, or as I wrote it down, Red's Fox.
Red's Fox.
Which, again, I wrote this in a hurry, but yeah.
That was actually his slave name, Red's Fox.
Yeah, Red's Fox. Yeah, they like that back in the day. But Red Fox, I mean, what's great about Red Fox is Pryor, everybody imitated. Pryor gives his, credit to Red Fox. So to me, that says a lot. And obviously,
if you have an opportunity, there's a lot of footage out there from the 60s of Red Fox in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. Check out his act when he was a younger man. Don't get me wrong, he always looked old as fuck. But check out his act when he was a younger man and doing his shows in Vegas, and you're going to see why people loved Red Fox.
He was also good in the movie Harlem Nights, where he couldn't see anything, and it was like, you fat old bitch, talking to his wife there. I'm trying to remember.
Unfortunately, they put him in a TV show with Della Reese, and that killed him.
Della Reese was actually the one in Harlem Nights, too.
Yeah, they ended up doing a TV show because of how much chemistry they had him in Harlem Nights, and that was literally the last thing he died. He died of a heart attack. Well,
yeah, the big one. Yeah, and then Eddie Murphy shot Della Reese's toes in that Harlem Nights movie. He's like, because she called him out. He's like, I'm gonna shoot you. He shot her toe. Good shit.
In fairness, with the size of Della Reese, that was the hardest thing to hit was her toes.
Yeah, no. Good movie. Check it out. I remember Red Fox had the line too in that movie. Oh no, it wasn't him, but somebody said it was Della Reese because she had all the prostitutes, and they're like, "You got a girl for this guy?" And he's like, "I got a girl whose pussy's so sweet. If you threw it up in the air, it turned into sunshine." And he's like, "You want to meet her?" And Pryor was like, "Nah, I ain't trying to meet that." And Red Fox's old ass was like, "I do." Ralphie May was my final guy. I made this list with my boy Pete, and Pete actually recommended Ralphie May. But I want to take Ralphie May, and I want to say, I'm sorry, Ralphie. I'm sure you were good. And I'm going to steal one of AJ's picks, and I'm going to just give it credit. Patrice O'Neal. Absolutely hilarious, and he's the guy I want in there.
So. Yeah, I unfortunately,
wish I had Patrice too.
Unfortunately, passed away because of complications of diabetes, which you almost never see in fat black guys.
Damn, you're workshopping all your material.
Yeah, I know, right?
You're ready.
Yeah, this is what this is all about.
Now, guys,
he's gonna be stealing Harlem Nights materials. Like, I tell you right, then I shot down Reese's toe. I'm like, what is this guy talking about?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, lost his mind.
Can you repeat that?
Now, guys, I saw a lot of Richard Pryor. I saw a lot of George Carlin. Which did you guys hear more, Kinnison or Williams?
I'm surprised we didn't hear more of Robin Williams, to be honest with you. What we were talking about before. Sorry, what we were talking about before. What we were talking about before was with the depression and stuff like that. That obviously, with the way Robin Williams' life ended with everything, that's the case right there.
Yeah, I got like 4 lists with Red Fox because you guys both had him.
Yeah. I feel like Red should be on this list, honestly, just because, like,
absolutely,
he's the guy Pryor credited for him. I mean, I'm not saying, to me, it's down to Carlin and Pryor. It's always
I was gonna say I'm putting
it's always down to Carlin and Pryor.
That's what it always is.
Let's just get to it then.
Hey,
Carlin,
wait a minute, Joe.
Pryor.
One thing though, I wanted to say kudos to you because you were the only other person who I saw with this person on their list. Bill Hicks. That's if young comics or people that are fans of comedy, if you haven't seen Bill Hicks, please take the time to check him out.
Yeah, his material has appeared on Tool albums. He's even done like a little comedy and music combination on a couple of his things. There was a couple of years ago, they sold a DVD and CD set where it was all the Bill Hicks concerts and all the CDs, and I had to pick it up. Like, if you like comedy, like really like comedy, Bill Hicks is for you.
I'm telling you, the guy passed away, 27 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
And his comedy has lasted almost longer now than his lifespan. So it's absolutely phenomenal.
And he was actually the thumbnail that I asked Archie to put in the creation of this episode, because to me, it was that important.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, go ahead. Sorry. Richard Pryor versus Carlin. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've heard them both, and it's funny because all the comedians I've always listened to on their top list always seem to have Pryor at number 1. But I kind of like Carlin's material a little bit better personally.
On any given day, it can go back and forth between the two of them.
Yeah.
To me, Carlin's material, the reason why I like it better right now is because it was constantly evolving.
Yeah.
That Richard Pryor, to me, somewhat smaller of a window because of things that happened, and his material was very similar that he did, whereas Carlin always seemed to be evolving, whether it was doing like characters like the Hippy Dippy Weatherman or evolving the 7 things you can't say on TV to later on just making observations about the world around him. Because he used those observations, his material was just constantly evolving.
Yeah, he was like Seinfeld with the observations. He had such a good understanding of words and just the meanings of words and why they were important. And I think, God, he was important given where comedy has gone with political correctness. And it's not necessarily the words you use, it's the intent behind the words.
He did skits where he was like, well, you can say this, but you can't say this. And it'd be the same word. And he's like, you can't say it in this context, but you can say it in this context. And it was just absolutely
on Saturday
amazing.
Night Live, right?
Yeah, he did. The guy was a cultural icon. That's and like I said, I go back and forth because there are times where I'm just in the mood to listen to Richard Pryor because Richard Pryor makes you forget. Well, Richard Pryor makes you forget about the world, kind of, and you just go. Yeah. Whereas George Carlin makes you think about the world and makes you think about what's going on. And the guy passed away 13 years ago, I believe, and still to this day, his stuff is so relevant.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I do want to say too that I think every list I ever saw, Richard Pryor was number 1, but I think it's important to know the 3 white guys pick George Carlin. He's our winner today.
Now wait a minute. Wait a minute. Before we pigeonhole that, Dave likes black people more than anybody I know.
I prefer most black comedies. Yes, I think it's very blanket to say I like black people more. Like I like everybody. I don't have a.
That's true. No. But what I'm saying is when it comes to comedies and stuff, it's not like we don't have that.
My favorite comedians are Richard Pryor, Chris Rock, Eddie Murphy,
Dave Chappelle.
Dave Chappelle. Yes, like I mean, I do. George Carlin makes my list too. But yeah, I just. For whatever reason, I don't know why, I grew up on African-American comedies. We
also both grew up different than a lot of people.
Sanford and Son.
Exactly. The Jeffersons.
Good times. All that stuff. It was
so to pigeonhole us as just three white guys is a little because we actually
it was attempt at humor, but I see what you're doing. Let's try to make sure
Dave's half Puerto Rican, so he can throw those stones at us.
Let's make sure the political correct people know that we are just joking around here.
Oh no, I want to put that little safety button in there in case in case we get canceled.
It is such a politically correct society now, and like anything that we say on the podcast, if we're on here and we say something. We're trying to entertain. We're trying
90% of the time we're bullshit, folks.
Absolutely. I like that he only went with 99% of the time.
Maybe one time we're serious.
Well, guys, you know what the music meant? We picked George Carlin as the winner, and
next week we're talking about abortion. Oh, sorry.
Actually, next week is.
So we're doing the funny stuff next week.
Next week is actually the Father's Day episode, and we're gonna have friend of the show Chris Zauha on, and we're gonna tell some dad stories, some dad-related wrestling stories.
I talked Joe out of the title. He wanted to call it The Three Dead Dads, but since we can't do that,
I know mine's hanging on.
I want to get a bunch of people on that didn't have dads for a Father's Day show, but Chris Zauha recently lost his dad. He is still currently a dad. No, like earlier this year.
Oh, was it earlier this year? Oh,
yeah, I lost my dad last year.
I knew that.
Yeah. Remember, that's why that shit's funny now.
We've tried to lose my dad, but he keeps coming back.
2012, baby. Carl Papa Smith. What's up, baby? Shout out. We'll talk about it later next week.
Yeah, so we'll see you guys next week.
Long. Oh.
Yeah, AJ, we're old as fuck. Congratulations. We're trying to wrap this up. We got to go get some drinks, and then we're going to go see AJ. AJ's